Welcome into Deep Waters here on ProBox TV. We take a deep dive into all things boxing. Well, today was supposed to be the purse bid ceremony for Canelo Alvarez and his IBF mandatory William Scull. There has been a side agreement, if you want to call it. The details have not been announced by the IBF, but it looks like there won't be a showdown between the IBF mandatory challenger Scull and the champion Canelo Alvarez. There are certain days I love working with Paulie Malignaggi. He's joining us via Zoom alongside Teddy Atlas. Paulie, this is exactly what you talk about, right? He's not facing the mandatory, so he's going to get stripped. He's no longer undisputed champion. That's what's going to happen, right?
I mean, the thing about these sanctioning bodies is you don't quite know how, when, or where they're going to enforce the rules, or if they enforce them even. In this situation, we've kind of been hearing grumblings that he'd be stripped. I mean, it's not really about Scull. He's not really a big known fighter. It's more so just about the principle of it. This probably should have happened in the instance of David Benavidez being the mandatory, but it wasn't. So I credit the IBF more for just finally holding their ground and doing something. I mean, it was about time one of these sanctioning bodies did what they were supposed to do, you know? Because my issue is Canelo will randomly fight an Uber driver and say, oh, he was my mandatory, I had to fight him. Then when the mandatory is difficult, like David Benavidez, he'll make other reasons. And of course, one way or the other, he gets to call the shots. He's a big timer, I get it. Most popular fighter in boxing, I get it. But nonetheless, for me, it's not more about Scull. It's more about finally a little bit of movement in terms of the wheels starting to turn again. Because there was a lot of monkey wrenches in the 168-pound wheel at this point with the mandatories not being enforced and the big fights not being enforced.
Well, the theory, of course, is that it would be WBA mandatory. Edgar Berlanga would be his next fight. That's what things are leaning toward. What's your thought on that fight, Teddy?
I don't think Berlanga. I think, again, we talked about Carrington earlier, that, you know, terrific fighter, terrific prospect, needs a little more seasoning, a little more time. I think Berlanga needs a little more time. You know, he looked very good in his last fight. You know, they put him in with the guy they wanted him to be in there with to look good, but still, he went out there and he showed improvement. He has been getting better, and he's still young. But I think he needs more time. I think that Berlanga could use at least one more fight, one or two more fights I would want to see before Berlanga got kind of in the same category as Jamie Munguia. Munguia wasn't ready for Canelo. I mean, he's still, and that's one of the reasons they took him. But as Paulie pointed out, before I even pointed out, and rightfully so. But Munguia made a good showing. You know, he showed a lot of heart, everything, but he could have used a little bit, and I know it sounds funny to say Munguia could have used more time when he had 42 fights, but at that level, on that stage, he needed more experience. He could have used a little more, but he got in there. The money spoke. He got in there a little too early, made a decent showing of himself. I think Berlanga's in the same category. I think he needs a little bit more time. He could go in there. He can make a decent showing of himself. Right now, what really comes to mind with Canelo is does he start to show slippage in these fights with the younger guys that have talent? If you can equate that in, if you could figure that into it, compute that into, you know, figuring out the fight, then you can say, okay, you never know. Maybe he gets a little older on that night. But off of his last performance, I think Berlanga needs still a little more time.
Big criticism of Floyd Mayweather, especially in the money phase of his career, Paulie, was that he never fought the best guy right in their prime, right? It was Canelo a little too early. It was Sugar Shane a little bit too late. Do you think it's that kind of same boxing mentality right now for Canelo? Is that a criticism?
I don't know, man. I think Floyd fought a lot of guys in their prime. I think once he earned sort of give or take earned the right to not to do that.
Yeah, the money era, you know, later on in his career.
People would say Canelo earned the right too, but I don't know that Canelo was fighting any of these guys in his prime and their prime ever, aside from Floyd. But who was going to turn down the Floyd fight? It was worth so much money. You were going to take that fight no matter what age you were. That wasn't like these things were like people make like, oh, he went for greatness. No, he didn't. He just took the biggest money fight available. It's astronomical money for a 21-year-old to fight Floyd Mayweather at 21 years old. That was a calculated risk worth taking regardless. And it's a win-win situation because you're fighting Floyd, the guy who was the pound for pound greatest at the time. It's like when he fought Bivol instead of Benavidez. You didn't look for greatness. You just looked for a cop out to not fight Benavidez, you know? And so you thought you were going to get a soft touch at light heavyweight because Bivol wasn't looking good. I don't think that Floyd created this as much as people think that he did. You know, he fought Corrales in his prime. He fought Genaro Hernandez at 21 years old, who would still only have one loss, and that was to Oscar De La Hoya, and he was a reigning champion. I remember Floyd Mayweather when he was, and granted, we're not going to compare a 33-year-old Canelo, who's a little bit past it, to an ascending Floyd Mayweather at 21 years old. But Floyd Mayweather, there was 3 major world champions at the time, right? The WBO title was sort of lackluster at the time, but there were the 3 champions were Azuma Nelson was aged, Genaro Hernandez was still rather good and only lost to De La Hoya, and Arturo Gatti at the time at 130 pounds. And he took on the toughest of those champions, Mayweather did at 21 years old. Usually you'll be looking for a soft touch for your first world title. He took the toughest one on and then dominated the fight. So
Wiped him out.
And then he defended against, you know, guys like Corrales. And then he went up to 35 and fought Castillo right away. You know what I mean? So I don't want to hear the whole, is it the Mayweather thing? Mayweather did this later, but he did so much before, you know? When you have the undisputed title, there's a representation you're supposed to hold up. There's a standard you're supposed to uphold, especially as a star in boxing. You're supposed to take on all those comers, the strongest, most dangerous guys. This is an outright duck. Floyd Mayweather never had an outright duck like this. Guys wanted Floyd to fight guys outside his weight class and all kinds of stuff, and then they're like, oh, he ducked them. Like, Mayweather and Mosley weren't in the same weight class until they were in the same weight class, and then they fought. You know what I mean? So it's not a duck if the guy's not even in your weight class, you know? Canelo has set the standard at 168 at this point. He's been there a while. He's become the undisputed champion. He beat some solid guys. He beat the champions. So he won the undisputed title the old school way, you know, where he took on the champions and beat them. So you got to give him some credit for that. But at the same time, now it's get up for these defenses, bro. I mean, that's your responsibility as a champion. Otherwise, again, there's a trickle-down effect in boxing where the top guys don't fight each other in their primes. They always marinate the fights to where they're not the best possible fights made. Again, for me, the best fight at 168, I've said it, is Benavidez against Morrell. You can't get that fight. You can't get that fight because there's a log jam at the top. There's a monkey wrench at the top. If one of these guys will fight Canelo, they would beat Canelo, and then then they would fight each other for the undisputed title themselves, you know, or for the unified title, because now Canelo's about to be stripped. So when you allow the weight class to move, there's no log jams, and you end up getting the best fighting the best. The Benavidez and Morrell won't fight each other because both are hoping to get a shot at Canelo. Neither will get a shot at Canelo because the guy would rather stab himself in the eye with hypodermic needle than fight those two guys. But nonetheless, if one of them would get Canelo, eliminate Canelo, the other guy would get the shot, especially it would be an in-house fight because they're both PBC fighters.
Well, when you talk about ducking, you talk about this weight class, you cannot do that without discussing David Benavidez. Could he enforce his mandatory against Canelo Alvarez? We stay at 175. We'll discuss it right after this.
June 28th, live from the Entertainment and Sports Arena in Washington, D.C., WBA Super Featherweight World Champion Lamont Roach Jr. will defend his title against undefeated challenger, fearless Fergal McCrory of Ireland. Catch all the action live in Washington, D.C. on ProBox TV, or even better, download the ProBox TV app.
The undefeated Irishman Fergal McCrory looking to spoil the homecoming of Lamont Roach Jr. looking to defend his title in front of the hometown crowd. Great boxer, but he promises a knockout June 28th. Don't miss it here on ProBox TV. We're discussing another star, Canelo Alvarez, and will David Benavidez be his mandatory that he actually makes after not fighting William Scull? I have Paulie Malignaggi, Teddy Atlas joining me via Zoom. Teddy, let's start with you. David Benavidez, do you think it's smart? He has not a lot of time to file his letter and complain about being the mandatory at 168. Does he stay at 175 with the options available to him? What do you think is a smart move for David Benavidez?
Look, if he wants some money, Paulie said this the other night. We covered a lot of stuff live right after the fight. Yeah. We came on and took the questions from the audience and went through a lot of this stuff. And first of all, it's great to have options. But like Paulie said, he's keeping his options open for the big money fight at 168. Canelo, I don't know if he's wasting his time there. You know, it could be physically damaging going up and down in weight. That can be. I made the point the other night that John Ruiz fight with Roy Jones Jr. when Jones went, and look, a different weight class, higher weight, I get it. But when he went up, Roy Jones, and he beat John Ruiz for one of those heavyweight titles, and then he came down, he was really never the same fighter. I don't know if it was age catching up to him too, reflexes, you know, slowing down a little bit. When you're a great fighter like Jones, you depend on not your technique as much as your reflexes. You're getting a little older, your reflexes are a little slower, you're pulling back a notch too late, and you get caught, as he did with Antonio Tarver in their second fight. But I don't know. Again, you never know if going up and down in the weight is going to hurt Benavidez. There's a potential for that. I it's I think that he's just keeping the door open for the Canelo fight. That's just such a huge boatload of money. It's probably going to have to take Turkey Al-Sheikh coming in with that, huge money. No one else is going to come in with the money that Canelo is going to want to get in the ring with Benavidez. And then he's also, like you said, he's got the option to go up to light heavyweight too. The one thing that I will knock the criticism that people criticized him and said, oh, he didn't look good at light heavyweight because he didn't get rid of Vosic. He was fighting a 37-year-old guy who wasn't used up, number one, and it was a former world champion, former bronze medalist. His only loss was to Benavidez. He was winning that fight going into the 10th round. I know that Vosic had been off 4 years, only had 3 fights back, but still, you can't dismiss that he dominated the first 8 rounds. He slowed down. He gassed a little bit later in the fight. No doubt about it. But I offer that performance. I'm not knocking him. I'm not saying he don't belong or have the ability to go up there and be successful at light heavyweight. There's only one problem at this particular time, and that's all that matters is who's around at your time. At this particular time, he has to go up and he has to fight two very special light heavyweights, obviously in Bivol and Beterbiev. Normally, you don't have guys that dominant. You don't have 2 of them that are at that level, that are that significantly good, with power, with expertise, with speed, with technique, with everything, and undefeated at the same time. So the only problem for me with Benavidez is who's there waiting at the light heavyweights. Not that he can't fight and campaign at light heavyweight. Not that performance against Vosic in any way tells me that he can't campaign there. It's just that you got those 2 monsters over there.
Now, Paulie, when you look at the options, you have said many, many times you don't believe Canelo Alvarez faces Benavidez, as you said, rather stab himself in the eye with a hypodermic needle. So is his option basically 175? Now, he said the injuries, he's had them looked at in his hands and wrists. 2 weeks, take a little rest, no surgery. He'll be all right for September, for Mexican Independence Day. But do you believe 175 is his destiny?
I mean, I think Benavidez's destiny is at 175 regardless. I mean, I think when he says he'd rather stay at 168, sometimes in these post-fight press conferences, I think the media guys, they just want to hear themselves talk on video. They ask ridiculous, meaningless questions like, what was the point of going down to 168 if he struggles? Morons. The point of saying he can still make 168 is to make sure everybody understands that Canelo is the one ducking him. He's still saying he can make 168 so that it's plain and clear for all these morons, idiot morons, to see that, oh, he still can make 168. Canelo should fight him. But then what do? Instead of going back to Canelo at his press conferences and burying Canelo in Benavidez questions, they do the kiss ass silent type instead, and just gracefully walk on eggshells just so they can keep their credential. Isn't that eliminates credentials like the FBI eliminates gangsters, So it's like this guy, they don't want to lose that, so they walk on eggshells with him, but they'll ask idiot questions to Benavidez like, why would he go to 168 when it's obvious why he still says he can make 168? He's trying to show you, he's meeting you halfway. As if you're the media, you're supposed to grasp that hint and say, oh, he's letting Canelo know he can still make 168. Canelo, where are you? Are you going to fight your mandatory in Benavidez? Instead, the idiot media ask these dumb questions because they want to continue walking on the eggshells with Canelo. Because all he's doing there, he doesn't outright say, oh, Canelo's outright ducking me, because then he doesn't want to give Canelo the excuse to say, oh, this guy disrespected me. Even though Canelo, if you disrespect him, if he feels like he can beat you, he'll fight you anyway. I mean, he fought De La Hoya's guy, for Christ's sake. So in the end, what he's doing is he's trying to meet you halfway by telling you can make 168 so that you take the onus on yourself as the media and say, Canelo's ducking him. Canelo's ducking him. Where's the response from Canelo? Canelo's ducking him. He can still make 168. Instead, they wonder why he's still talking about 168. His future at 175. He's just letting you know he can make 168 so he can get the Canelo fight. And he can let you know, you idiots know, that Canelo's ducking.
Well, speaking of somebody who's wiping out their division, that's right, it's the monster. Naoya Inoue might be moving up in 2025, and who's waiting there for him? We discuss it when we come back. Well, we discuss a pound-for-pound debate here on this show on the YouTube channel. Check it out. Naoya Inoue coming in about third, depending on who you believe, but outstanding fighter, might be moving up in 2025. Bob Arum called the WBA title a who cares belt. Not interested in defending it. He's going to take on TJ Doheny and then Sam Goodman before moving up to featherweight in 2025. Apparently, that is the plan for the monster. Paulie, you talked about it many, many times that Naoya Inoue is going to take his time moving up in weight, and he's going to be able to get full, be ready for the weight class. But your thought about who might be waiting for him when he gets up to that weight class, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think at featherweight, that's the talk of the town right now at featherweight. But I think we got to stop with the constant push about moving up in weight classes. This is sort of, for me, this is one of the biggest reasons PEDs are so rampant in boxing. Because a guy makes a defense to him right away, you're talking about what he'll do in the next weight class. So eventually guys just can't keep up with the expectation unless they're doing PEDs. So I think when you see Inoue getting dropped at 122, despite the domination he's still showing, I think you start to realize, oh man, maybe there's a ceiling here. You're starting to feel the punches a little bit too much. A guy dropped him that had no business dropping him, even though he got up and dominated him. So I think, what are we going to see from Inoue at 126? I think eventually we're going to see Inoue at 126. I just wouldn't say that it's going to be as quick moving up the ladder as he went from, say, 118 to 122, which was like a blink. We did it quickly. I think there's going to be a little bit of a slower pace moving up in weight little by little. Otherwise, you start to sort of you start to wonder what these guys are doing.
The Neri fight, he was dropped early in that fight, Teddy, and as Paulie pointed out, it showed that moving up weight class is going to have its effects on Naoya Inoue. Do you think there's danger in that move up, considering the field right now?
Look, Lomachenko is one of the greatest fighters of our time. He doesn't always get enough credit. I mean, Tank Davis is tremendous. All these guys, but right now, just talking about Lomachenko, who's been around longer, two-time gold medalist from the Olympics, moved up 3 weight classes. Everyone comes to a point. There's 2 things that get the really good fighters. One is Father Time. Nobody's beating him. And the other one is, and I think Paulie would agree with this, and he just touched on it, is how many weight classes you go up. I mean, at some point, you hit your max. Unless you have that kind of special skeleton where you can put on the weight, you can go up, and of course you're special in the ways that you carry your power, you carry your speed, like Pacquiao did. That was very rare. I know there's a lot of questions people are going to ask about that, how he did it and all that stuff, but
yeah, 130 in March, from 130 in March 2008 against Marquez to 147 in December 2009 against Cotto. Yeah, pretty good point. I guess you would want to ask a question about that if you had a brain in your head and if you had an honest bone in your body. You would want to ask a little bit of a question about that. But look, there's no getting around. I love Pacquiao, love how he lives his life, how he cares about people, what he does for his country, the Philippines. There's no getting around what a great fighter he is. But you do, that is there. Moving up, again, there's a limit to how many weight classes a guy can get up where all of a sudden, no matter how great he's been, it starts to show that he's moving up maybe too far. And in a way, it's going to start getting close to that place. And it might have been a little bit of a, telltale sign, a little bit of the writing on the wall, like Paulie said, that he got dropped in his last fight. Now, look, he got dropped by a really good puncher. He didn't just get dropped by anybody. He got dropped by a guy who can bang. But at the end of the day, it might be a little warning sign that, hey, don't move up. Don't count your chickens before they're hatched. Don't just take for granted, as great as you are, as great as you've been, that you move up without thinking about the weight class that's coming next. Having said all that, I think that if they want to get a title for him right away,
And look, what I'm going to say right now is it shouldn't be controversial because it's the truth. But his promoter is 92 years old. You think that he's going to have a lot of patience wanting to wait? I'm not saying he's going to throw him to the lions. There is no throwing Inoue to the lions. He's that good. But you don't think that he's going to say, hey, I'd like to see him fight sooner than later for a featherweight title? And he promotes the guy that has a featherweight title, Espinoza, and I could see that fight being made sooner than later, not waiting on that for one reason. You can hit Espinoza. Yeah, he's terrific. Yeah, he made a Rocky-esque, debut into his title, his first title winning. It was unbelievable. Comes off the floor in the 5th round, then in the 12th round, he almost stops Ramirez. Incredible. But you can hit him. And anyone Inoue can hit, he does carry his power. Anyone he can hit, he can beat. And he can win a title.
Well, we'll discuss the featherweight division. Who should be number 1 in 2025? Who stands tall when it's time for the monster to move up? We'll discuss it right after this. Well, you see the featherweight champions, 126 pounds, Luis Alberto Lopez and Rafael Espinoza, both had very tough fights defending their titles this summer. That's right, it's Angelo Leo taking on Lopez and Espinoza fighting Chirino Sanchez. So 2 tough fights for 2 other champions this summer. Nick Ball, of course, looking fantastic. His last time out in the 5 versus 5 fight in Saudi Arabia. A lot of great names there. My question for you, gentlemen, should the monster, Naoya Inoue, come up in weight class to featherweight, who do you think stands tall in 2025 by the time he gets there? Paulie, what do you think?
Teddy made a good point with Espinoza. I've talked about Shushu Carrington, because I think he's coming into his own as well. There's not a huge name at featherweight, but I think as far as prospects are concerned, Carrington is really being pushed a lot by Top Rank. And so I think he may be maneuvered into a position where he goes and grabs a world title, and then from there maybe has that piece of hardware that may draw Inoue into the fight. I think Teddy also made a great point that Arum is not that young anymore. I think guys like Arum stay alive because they give themselves something to do. They stay motivated, and I think things like this motivate them. It gives them reasons to want to get up in the morning and continue to work every day, and so on and so forth. They got a company that really makes that happen. And then actually didn't give Pacquiao enough credit before. He actually went from 130 to 147 in the same year. He did it in December 2008 against De La Hoya. I forgot about that. It was actually March of 2008 fighting Marquez at 130 and December 2008 fighting De La Hoya at 147. I didn't give him enough credit. The December 09 was actually
amazing.
Amazing.
Unbelievable putting on weight. Teddy, who do you think's on top by the time Naoya Inoue gets to the featherweight division? Still think it's Espinoza? Think he successfully defends?
Yeah, he doesn't have a walk in the park, Espinoza, in his first title defense against Chirino. It's not a walk in the park, but that's just, that's assume. I know that's a problem assuming it can make a what out of who, but let's do that and say Espinoza is still there. I love the way you said, and you brought us into it. I don't know if you even realized how appropriate it was when you said who will be standing tall. See, that's the thing. Espinoza, if he's there standing tall, I think it'll be him for a couple reasons, obvious reasons. One, Top Rank promotes him so they can make that fight. And 2, you can hit him. He stands tall. Yeah, he can use his height, but he doesn't always use his height because, he's a warrior. He'll go and get you. He'll go and fight you. He'll give up his height. And if you give up your height with Inoue and he can hit you, he can get rid of you. And another thing is, don't forget how good a body puncher Inoue is. He puts water. He don't just put water in the basement. Like I say, he floods the basement right out. And there's going to be a lot of long body there against Espinoza to hit, to flood out. So my money would be on it being Espinoza, go right for the title. You got Inoue, you want title fights.
Well, you know how good the featherweight division is. Like, subscribe, follow us, make us part of your boxing routine. Great fights coming up all the way to 2025. And we'll be right here breaking them down on Deep Waters. Thanks for watching.